that guy or girl that had their life ruined in high school. What's happened to them since? Before we start with the first story, please hit a subscribe and ring the notification bell to stay updated with us. Story 1. A friend was with her boyfriend wintertime in a car. He died from carbon monoxide poisoning. She survived. Impacted her through school. Upon graduation, she moved to California. She was on a motorcycle with her new boyfriend during a road accident. He died. She suffered severe body burns from the accident fire. Her face was disfigured as a result, requiring many years of facial surgery. Later years, we worked together. Her positive attitude was astounding, considering what she went through. Story 2. Straight-A honor student got caught up in drugs. I think she ended up in rehab multiple times, and our whole town thought it was a shame because she could have gone to Harvard or something. But now she's sober, got a real estate license, and she's doing really well. There's always hope. Story 3. Shortly after, dude and his friend called in a bomb threat to the high school before school started. They traced the phone call to the payphone down the street, got him on camera. They arrested and expelled both of them from school. I don't know what happened to his friend, but his father and him started a tech security company roughly 10 years later, and he's running it today. Story 4. Dude was top-tier athlete and top 25 student. I remember being hyper jealous of him. He had the soccer skills I wanted, dated the girl I liked, all of it. Then he started drugs and dealing his junior year. He ended up dropping out 3 months from graduating and going to jail a few weeks later. In the 20 years since has been in and out of jail, and his parents lost their house trying to get him out of jail and into rehab. It's wild. Meth is a hell of a drug. Story 5. He had a mental breakdown and came into class naked and attacked the teacher and tried to assault some of the students, before he got jumped by all the students. He spent the rest of the school year in a private classroom. From what I hear, he was spent to S special home. Story 6. Hi, I'm that guy. I was suspended for a year near the beginning of my junior year, charged with a felony, and eventually dropped out of high school at 17. I got my GED a couple months before I was supposed to graduate and then took a year off of school. I then went to trade school for welding, graduated, and got a full-time job. After a couple years of that, I was promoted to quality assurance. I am now 25, happily engaged, and I made $78,000 last year. I'm also attending college courses. My work is fronting a large majority of the bill and working towards a bachelor's in industrial engineering. Story 7. Dude was the biggest drug dealer in the school. He didn't even try to hide it. Dealt his school for damn near an entire year, before the cops finally decided to make a spectacle of it and arrest him in the middle of lunch, head down on the lunch table and cuffed. He didn't return to school. Girl I know that didn't go to our school went on a date with him like 10-ish years later. The dude still talked about how he was this huge drug dealer in HS. Last I heard, he was managing a machine shop and doing decent, but never married or had kids. Story 8. She lured the only black girl in our school into the forest with a group of her friends, and they beat her for the color of her skin. She and the other girls were expelled immediately. Not sure if there was more legal action taken, but she was not allowed back on the premises ever again and was homeschooled because no other school would allow her to attend. A few years ago, I saw on her Facebook that she married a black guy. I wonder if he knows. Story 9. I dropped out after a mental breakdown the first month of my senior year. It was a small school, and I was a captain on the lacrosse team, so when I disappeared, it was a big deal. Got super drunk at a football game and drove home, at some point driving directly into traffic. Somehow didn't crash, and my mom and stepdad somehow found me before the cops did. Mental breakdown ensued, and I revealed that I was pretty suicidal. Ended up spending a few days in the mental hospital. Was too embarrassed to return and dropped out and took the GED test. Had a couple rough years after and really regretted the social isolation I put myself into, but I'm okay now. Have a viable career to make money and an awesome girlfriend. Still struggle with my mental health and relationships with family and friends though. Story 10. A guy I knew in school was a pure athlete that broke several state records in football and track. got a full ride to a top Division 1 school, and even played a few games as a freshman. During his sophomore year, he was involved with an armed robbery and some other charges. He got like 25 years in prison, and I believe he's still there. Through his whole career away, was always a super nice guy all through school, and very uncharacteristic of him, but guess I didn't know him that well. Story 11. A guy I went to school with in the late 80s was the poor kid and had a heap of behavioral anger issues. If there was a fight, it probably involved him. I think though the first 6 or so years of school, pretty much every guy in the class had been in a fight with this guy at one point or another. Either someone had said, done something that upset him, or he'd said, done something that upset them. In my case, he'd thrown a lump of wood at a kid and missed. It hit me in the head instead, so I chased him down, pushed him over, and booted him in the head. I absolutely should have been suspended for this, but because it was him, I got in no trouble, and he was removed from class, again. Somehow in high school, he got a girlfriend, who happened to be a friend of my sister's. My sister cut ties with her friend because of this, and that was basically the last I heard of him, until a few years ago. I was back in my hometown for a few days, and my dad invited me to the golf clubhouse for a few beers after his round of golf. Once there, he introduced me to the guys he'd been playing with, and said apparently you two went to school together. Just then, I realized who it was. He'd ended up marrying that girl from high school, and they had a few kids. He was working as a manager at a nearby electrical appliance store, and generally, he was doing pretty well for himself. It turned out him and my dad played golf together fairly often over the years. It was good to see he'd done well for himself. Not at all what I'd expected when I knew him back in the day. Story 12. Nothing major. Fake names. Jen dated Ryan, who's mixed, is relevant, off and on for a year. They broke up. She still wanted him. Jen then dated Mike, Ryan's best friend. Ryan didn't care. They were both sleeping with her. Anyway, nudes got around. They're all on the baseball team, so they make jokes. Baby one came out white. Rumor mill says she was really upset it was Mike's child, not Ryan's. Pattern continues. She leaves Mike for Danny, Ryan's other best friend. Still sleeping with Ryan and Danny. Rinse and repeat with baby two. Baby is white. They break up. We graduate. Jen dates Chris, Mike's older brother, has 2 more kiddos with him. She's doing great, living a Midwest redneck life. But man, that drama was entertaining. Story 13. He was literally captain of the football team. In early 2001, along with a small group of friends, he made a series of bomb threats to his high school and didn't get caught. On September 5th, we all know what happened that day. He was inspired to call in another bomb threat. Unfortunately for him, because of the day's events, the feds intervened and caught him quickly. He caught 5 years. He was released after 2 years, violated probation by committing a petty crime, but got out of the rest of his prison sentence. Because he was under 18 on Sept. 3, and the judge felt that the terms of his probation shouldn't apply. Fast forward 15 or so years later, and this happened. So yeah, he's still a messed up dude, but I think he's out of prison for now. Story 14. Dude stole his mom's car while coked up, ran a red and killed a mother delivering papers to make some extra cash before Christmas. He got booked for a DUI, vehicular manslaughter, and grand theft because his mom reported the car stolen before the accident. This guy was popular, so there were a lot of free BT. Free BT. His initials on Facebook and MSN. Total scumbag move to get behind a wheel in that state. A few years behind bars and he got out, did some more shady stuff, was in and out of jail on drug charges, grand theft, theft under 1,000, stuff like that. Then he held up a grocery store with a knife, broad daylight, no mask or anything. Just walked into a Foodland and held a cashier at knife point and demanded cash. He got caught pretty easily, did more time, and then unfortunately OD'd after getting out after the armed robbery. What a wild spiral from a pretty popular guy at school. Story 15. Dude wound up in a cult. After high school, dude moved into a tent in the city park. Went jogging one day and got invited to a party at some place that turned out to be a cult. A big-ass compound in some shithole town with a bunch of alpacas running around. Dude moved into the compound, got into drugs, and ended up fathering a bunch of kids. 5 years later, dude left the cult, moved back into the tent, and went silent. Bam. Quit talking to everyone just like that. I see the dude around town sometimes, but he isn't the same. I'll catch him slinking through alleys, peering around corners, all paranoid and shit. Dude's always wearing the same hoodie pulled all tight around his head. Even wears the thing in 90-degree heat in the dead of July. Whenever he sees me, his eyes bug out and he takes off running. Wild shit.